Hello everyone, I'm Pia Renada. Welcome to Rappler Talk. We're here today with Marciano Paynor Jr., who is the Chief Presidential Protocol and the Director General for Operations of the ASEAN National Organizing Council. Sir, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much, Pia.
Thank you for giving us the time. I would just like to start with talking to you about the President's recent statements on the U.S. ambassador, our ambassador to the United States. So last week he mentioned about how he might not send someone. I want to give the direct quote. He said he does not feel like sending an ambassador to the United States. And a lot of Filipinos, especially Filipinos in the United States, want to know what does the statement mean for our diplomatic ties with the U.S. and what does it mean for Filipino concerns, especially those who reside in the U.S. So could you let us know, because President Duterte also voiced his appointment or his desire to appoint you as the next U.S. ambassador. What is the current status of your appointment?
Okay, thank you very much, Pia. In all of these things, what we on the receiving end of these instructions do is we wait until we have the real appointment. In the meantime, we just prepare for it. So insofar as the President's pronouncements are concerned, one, the presence of the embassy there with a chargé d'affaires or the most senior being designated as officer in charge or chargé d'affaires, he takes care of the day-to-day work of the embassy or of an ambassador. So in the meantime, while no ambassador has as yet been designated, then he continues to be the OIC or the CDA, Chargé d'Affaires, and that's Patrick Chosoto, who's a very competent Foreign Service officer and has served very well in Washington, D.C. So when the President says, I'm not sending one in the meantime, then that is his prerogative to send, recall, appoint ambassadors extraordinary and plenipotentiary, or those ambassadors who will personally represent him to the head of state of the receiving country. I guess, again, I cannot second guess his intentions, because these are all interlinked with the way that he is now recalibrating our foreign policy, an independent foreign policy. So I think we leave it at his statements, no. But insofar as our Filipinos in the United States are concerned, insofar as their whatever concerns they may have are taken care of by the Philippine Embassy in Washington, D.C., as well as the various different consulates generals spread all over the United States, including New York, Chicago, Washington, LA, San Francisco, Honolulu, and Guam. So the concerns, the welfare of the Filipino Americans in the United States are taken care of regardless of whether an ambassador is there or not, because we have someone who's sitting there in an acting capacity.
Sir, what does it mean when the president, doesn't have to be President Duterte himself, but in general, when a president decides not to send an ambassador to a country, what does it mean?
It can mean many things. It can mean that the person of his choice is not as yet available, and therefore he says he will not send someone yet. It could be that there is it's a show of displeasure. For the same reason he's not sending, if there is already one and let's say an event happens and he wants to show displeasure, he can recall the ambassador for what is called for consultations. And the ambassador stays at capital, in this case here in Manila, for a while, just to, in a sense, give a statement that, well, we did not like what you did, so I'm recalling my ambassador. But because the ambassador is the personal representative of one head of state to another. So,
when you heard, sir, that he wanted to appoint you as U.S. ambassador, what did you feel?
well, I felt honored. Most career Foreign Service officers, of course, would have wanted to be appointed as ambassador to the United States. But then again, we always take these things in stride, because we know it is a political decision. Uh, everything, a lot depends on one's personal relationship with the appointing authority or with whoever made that particular recommendation. In my particular case, since I've only really met the president during the inauguration or just before, I'd like to imagine that there were some people who recommended me, and the president took that recommendation seriously and said that he was going to appoint me. The process, that's only the start of the process. The real process, the real formal process starts with a letter from the president to the Commission on Appointments requesting for the confirmation of that appointment. Once that's approved, then we write a letter to the United States, to the government of the United States, requesting for what's called an agrément, or their official agreement to receive the ambassador designate. Once that is received, then the ambassador designate can now go to the capital and wait for the schedule of his presentation of his credentials. And the credentials are actually a letter by the president to the receiving head of state saying, and it's done in very formal language, as "Dear great and good friend, this is to introduce my ambassador designate, who I'm appointing to be my personal representative to you, etc., etc." Those are your letters of credence. So once that is received, then I become, or the person presenting credentials becomes an ambassador extraordinary and plenipotentiary, AEP, meaning having full powers representing his head of state. And by that also, the honorific title of ambassador sticks to the person for life. So once an ambassador, having presented credentials, not just being an ambassador because of your rank in the department or of having been appointed as, let's say, a special envoy, only those who have presented credentials are called ambassadors for life.
And sir, you were mentioning also that one possible reason why the president has not yet issued such formal appointment papers is because he asked you to stay on to head the ASEAN NOC. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, because I had started the ASEAN NOC even before he became president. The previous administration requested for me to make the necessary preparations right after APEC, because I was also the executive director for the APEC National Organizing Council in 2015. So, well, they thought it logical to appoint, the previous administration thought it logical to appoint me to prepare for the ASEAN Summit. And when the new president would have come, then it was entirely up to them to appoint a new one. President Duterte reappointed me, so I continued to hold on to the position.
You've never spoken to the president about what will happen after ASEAN?
No, no. There's a lot to be said about this ASEAN hosting. Even I myself didn't realize the magnitude of the work.
Sir, just going back to the U.S.-Philippine relations, given your all of your experience in representing the country, the Philippines, in Chicago, LA, Washington D.C., and all these states, what do you feel, sir, about the relationship between President Duterte and President Trump now? I mean, what we see him when he talks about President Trump, what can you read into how they banter or how they?
For me, I'd rather not make any comment on that, because I would like to think of it as work in progress. It's anybody's guess. No, it is the relationship between heads of state, heads of government, is on many occasions personal in nature. If they're able to establish rapport at the beginning, then the relationship becomes well-oiled and so on. So this is when you have a flourishing of an enhancement of relations. In the case of our president and President Duterte, well, both presidents came at a time when, they're newly elected, both of them. So this is a getting to know you stage. But two, also it came in the way of our president saying we will recalibrate and we will revisit our foreign relations. No? We want for it to be equitable. We want to have more friends, etc. And so that's where we are now. So as far as the two heads of state are concerned, the United States and the Philippines, I think this will be established further towards, well, a little bit more, maybe 5-6 months or so. Well, truth to tell, even the U.S., they don't know how the current president or what the direction is. No, it's because it was totally unexpected, correct? So you have a Philippine president who is in a way non-traditional. You have a new U.S. president who's also non-traditional. So really don't know. Yes, we do. Perhaps we can hazard a guess about where it's going to, but at this point, I'd rather say it's work in progress.
What would be the next challenge for the next U.S. ambassador, given nga po this state of affairs?
Challenge always is how do you continue to enhance relations, especially if the relations are strained to begin with, right? So therein lies the challenge. Therein lies, and sometimes the reaction of the ambassador or of both sides is dependent on, is situational in a way. A lot of things happen or don't happen, and reactions of both presidents as well as their constituents have to be weighed in. So I'm speaking in very, very general terms because, like I said, at this point, I'm not in a position really to say. Because, like I said, I don't want to think of myself as until I get my appointment and get my confirmation. Okay.
So now, sir, we're going to move on to
Yes.
discussing the ASEAN 2017.
Yes,
and of course, you're heading the National Organizing Council. And Filipinos want to know what exactly is ASEAN 2017 to begin
Okay.
with.
The ASEAN, of course, is an aggregation of 10 Southeast Asian countries. So originally, it was the original founding member states here were the Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand. In 1984, when Brunei became independent, became the 5th member. Then soon after, it was joined by the so-called CMLV, Vietnam, Cambodia, Malaysia, Laos, and Myanmar. So, sorry, it was the first 5. Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, and Thailand. Then Brunei became the 6th, and so on. So this is an aggregation of 10 countries, 10 member states, 628 million people. It's in fact, the 7th largest economy in the world. So that is ASEAN. That's ASEAN. They meet every year, and so the chair transfers from one country to another, basically in alphabetical order. Okay. The order became changed because, if you recall, in 2006, we chaired where it should have been Myanmar. But because Myanmar had some internal problems, so they asked to pass chairmanship. Philippines took over. Now that that Myanmar is now more or less stable, they have already hosted ASEAN, and so now we're back to the rotation. So we are expected to host once every 10 years. So just so happens the last time was 2006, 2007. So now it's 2017, 10 years after. So we're now hosting. So for us, this is all part of our being part of the organization, and and in this hosting, we are hosting about 119 meetings. like I said earlier, I didn't realize the magnitude of this hosting until we dealt with the total number of meetings. There will be 2 summits, one in April, end of April, and one in November.
Yeah.
The one in April will only involve the 10 ASEAN member states. So that's fairly simple. The one in November involves all 10 plus the so-called dialogue partners, and that's the US, Russia, and India. Then you have the ASEAN plus 3, which is China, Japan, Korea. Then we have Australia and New Zealand. And then we have, because of the 40th anniversary of ASEAN Canada and ASEAN EU, they will also be here. In addition, I understand that Timor-Leste or East Timor is will be a guest. So that's 21 plus the UN Secretary General, which is lower than head of state but higher than minister level. So that's 22 various different delegations coming in November. So that's the big one.
Who are the VIPs we are expecting to attend?
Well, the heads of government of all 21. We expect President Trump to be here, the Prime Minister of India, the Prime Minister of Japan. For ASEAN, it's the Premier. So that's Premier Lee Keqiang who will attend. Then we have, if at the time it's still Prime Minister Abe, then Prime Minister Abe will come yet another time. So there, all the heads of government of these various different countries will be here.
And for Russia, will it be?
Russia, it will be President Putin or Premier Medvedev.
Is this a bigger challenge compared to APEC?
In a way, yes. Because in APEC, there's one summit. Here you have 2. In ASEAN, you have the addition of India, which is another high threat country. As we know, India has had 2 of their prime ministers assassinated in the past, mother and son. So we have very, very serious security concerns.
How are we dealing with the security concerns?
Our Committee on Security, which is headed by the Department of Interior and Local Government, in the committee is headed by General Catalino Cuy. And I've worked with him a long time ago when he was still with the Philippine National Police, both for the ASEAN or the APEC Summit of 1996 and now this ASEAN Summit. So I'm comfortable that he's very well on top of the situation. So the whole strength of the Philippine National Police will be put to task. So will the armed forces in full support, as well as the other law enforcement agencies in the country, including immigration, customs, our intelligence agencies, and so forth.
Is there any new protocol we're implementing for security given the state of lawlessness we have now?
Yes, there's a serious paradigm shift in terms of security, terrorism. Now you can't say where it's coming from, really. So we have to be on the alert, and we have to be just pray that nothing happens. We will do our best, and hopefully, as in the past 3 multilateral summits that we've hosted, that we can, finish our chairmanship without any serious events happening.
The President has also been consistent in espousing simplicity when holding big events that could interfere with the daily lives of Filipinos.
Yes.
In what way are we hosting ASEAN 2017 that is consistent with the President's directive?
Yes. In addition to security, our security forces, police, MMDA, etc., have been looking at traffic patterns. how do we avoid creating traffic when heads of state, heads of government, because of security, have to move from one point to another, and the normal requirement, not just by us, but by the visiting delegations, is there should be no other movement. So it will affect our daily lives. And so part of what we're trying to do is already this early we're telling people, well, there will be some disruption, but it will be minimal. So
What do you mean, Mr. by minimal?
well, like for instance, now the elevated highways surrounding the airport will now be used, and it's now being used, right? So from there we can bring our delegates or heads of delegations straight to the respective hotels at the MOA area or even in Makati, without having to interfere in the normal traffic on the ground. So that's what we're trying to do. Now, it also happens that the 29th of April, when the summit is hosted by us, is a Sunday. So, sorry, it's a Saturday. 29th is a Saturday. No school, the business offices are closed. So we're hoping to minimize disruption.
No holiday declaration plan for
On a Saturday, you can't
No, I
declare.
mean like example for the one in November.
Oh, the one in November. Okay, the one in November we'll try to we're working on holding it in Clark. If it's in Clark, we will not affect anyone, because it will be, they arrive there, the airport's inside. We'll do the meetings inside Clark. So
And you're still working this out.
yes,
So
of
it's
course.
not final yet if it will be in Clark.
Yes.
Because previously the president was talking about how APEC should have been in Clark. I remember him saying those things.
Yes.
Agreeing with the former President Ramos about that
Yes.
suggestion.
Yes.
So was that what you considered? When
So yes, from the very beginning, that's what we had considered. There have been some hiccups, there have been some minor disruptions, but now everything's on track again. So we're looking at how to do the whole thing in November without having to disrupt air traffic, having to disrupt ground traffic.
And sir, this is also going to be the first time that the president will host an international summit as president.
Yes.
And we all know that this is a role that comes with its own protocols and its
Yes.
own rules. How has he been briefed about these protocols?
Well, we are lucky that he became president. When he became president, he attended 2 multilateral summits. The Laos ASEAN summit, and that was when the chairmanship was transferred to us in September last year, and the APEC summit in November of last year in Lima, Peru. So he has a full grasp of how it is like to chair. Again, he saw how it is as a participant. Now he's going to be the one chairing. That's a totally different story. The preparations are a little bit more intense. He has had to have mastery of subject matter, substantive issues, etc. And this is slowly being taken up to speed by the Department of Foreign Affairs, the Department of Trade and Industry, and the Department of Social Welfare, the 3 pillars of ASEAN.
Are these regular briefings?
Yes, part of they're part of normal briefings in cabinet. That's one, and 2, there's special briefings for him, and henceforth there will be quite a number of these briefings, so that little by little the president gets to really soak in on the issues that are now being discussed in ASEAN.
How regular are they now, and how more regularly will they be held?
I think it's about once every 3 weeks now. Closer to the date, it will be once every week, and then a little bit more, maybe a week before.
Are you present, sir, in those briefings?
Yes, I am.
Which issues does he usually ask about?
No, right now he's just listening. So that's the way that he is. He just listens. But our president is one voracious reader. He reads a lot, and he picks up quite fast.
And what specific issues usually these briefings deal with?
Nothing really that would kind of raise a flag or anything like that. Like I said, he's taking all issues the same, all the same. West Philippine Sea, of course, is one of the issues, and he has had to deal with this just prior to the China visit, the Japan visit, etc. So, in that respect, I guess he knows the issues. But in other cases, then say services, goods, labor. ASEAN is a whole gamut of issues, full range of issues, not environment, things like this. So, talagang slowly, little by little.
Could you explain, sir, the role of chairman of ASEAN? What kinds of roles or what kinds of tasks will he have to lead in when, for example, during the ministerial meetings or in general as ASEAN 2017 chairperson?
Yes. Okay. As chair, you provide the physical facilities for the meeting. Make sure you have the hotels, the delegates are well taken care of, they have transport, and so on and so forth. So that all they think about will be the substance of the meetings, correct? So meantime, they prepare for the substantive portions. Each one may have particular positions per issue. Some may have the same, some may be opposed. So the chair now, the chair's purpose is to ensure that the meeting comes out with something positive, with an outcome. So whether it's an outcome document, an agreement here, a signed treaty there, and so on and so forth, that's the chair's work. But the chair starts all the way from the technical working group to the senior officials, and the senior officials are divided into the senior officials for political and security, senior officials for economic and trade, and senior officials for culture and the arts. That's the SIOM, Senior Economic Officials Meeting, and the SOCA, Senior Officials for Culture and Arts. SOM, SOCA, these are the three pillars of ASEAN. So our senior officials also chair those meetings. And when you chair, you kind of shepherd the meeting to what we want to be an outcome document. Because PT, if the meeting ends and no agreements were reached, no treaties were signed, nothing of that sort happened. So, so as chair, you make sure that we have a collective group of outcomes. So that is our main role as chair, all in the furtherance of ASEAN goals. See? So it's not just Philippine goals that you are looking out after as chair, you're looking out after the whole ASEAN. Because while you're chair, Philippines is also represented there. You also have a delegation head there. See?
Who will be probably foreign secretary?
For the ministerial meetings. But for the summit itself, when only the leaders are there, only the leaders will be present, plus one. So that's our format now, leader plus one. So you have an advisor behind.
So President Duterte will also, to a certain extent, play a role in negotiating, being referee to these interests, and coming up with a document.
Yes, but for the most part, many of these documents will already have been agreed to at the ministerial level. So these are all worked out at the technical working group level, semi-finalized at the senior officials meeting, referred to the ministerial meeting for final imprimatur, and then all of that now goes to the leaders during their summit. So everything is prepared for the summit.
And we've also seen in the past, President Duterte participated in summits like the APEC, and
Yes.
then he was unconventional. He missed certain events, the pictorial, the family portrait, with all the heads of state, and he's now going to be host of ASEAN 2017. Can the public expect the same attitude towards these summits from the president, given his previous
No,
participation?
as chair, he cannot be absent. That's one. Two, his absence in APEC can be explained and is kind of accepted by many of the other participants and leaders. Unfortunately, because of time constraints, the president undertook a 12 plus 14. That's a 26-hour flight plus, and the only break was a 3-hour layover in New Zealand. 26, that's 29 hours flight. For someone who's not really, who expressly says that, you know, I don't like long travels, but he had to do it. So so he was able to attend the opening, but and then there was a lull. So he said, I'll take a bit of rest. And I don't know, if you travel a lot and jet lag takes over, oh my goodness, no matter what you do.
And at his age, of course.
Well, that too, plus if you're not predisposed to traveling long distances, it will affect you. So many of the leaders understood that, so it was not taken against him either.
But in ASEAN, he really has to be present.
In ASEAN, yes, as chair. Because you cannot have, these are all heads of government, no? You cannot have, let's say, the foreign secretary chairing, because he, in the sense, he's a minister, he's a level lower, and the heads of government are the ones attending the meeting. So it has to be the president.
As early as now, do we know if there will be bilateral meetings between President Duterte and other heads of state?
Oh, that is given. That is given. They will seek out to see him.
As chairman of the...
As chair, yes. At the very least, because that's what we do also. When we go to a multilateral meeting, part of, it's de rigueur in a sense. Part of what we try to do is to call on, at least to call on the chair. Separate.
But it's a different thing to know if all of these meetings will be granted, or it's also protocol that all of the meetings will be granted?
As much as possible. It's really a question of time. Because you have to find a common time between two leaders. Because they're also, half of the importance of multilateral meetings like this are the bilateral meetings. Yes.
So that's where the real talk happens.
Yes. So again, we will have to kind of try to organize all of this so that he gets to meet as many of the leaders as possible.
The ASEAN 2017 budget also bloated the Office of the President's budget by 15 billion or 17 billion.
Yes.
Is this enough for the hosting?
Yes, I must say so, unless we encounter some unforeseen circumstances. We did not provide for contingencies.
What's the biggest expense so far that you see will be the biggest expense?
Well, security. We cannot spare, I mean, that's a particular area where you know you're waiting for the 0.1% that might happen, but you pray will not. But you have to be prepared for it anyway, right? So you spare no expense.
For security?
Yes.
This will go to mostly intel work or
No,
guard?
mostly for moving people in and out of the venues of these meetings.
So car rentals, is that right?
Well, also car rentals, because we are moving thousands of people from airport to hotels to conference sites to sightseeing tours, etc. So a whole lot of movement on the ground. So that's part of the expense. Putting up the conference facilities, ensuring that everything is clear, putting up interpretation booths, making sure that all the proceedings are recorded, you know, in digital format, etc. Things like this.
Around how much of the budget is spent on security? Maybe half or not?
No, about a third.
A third? Wow, on security?
Yes.
Are there any new things we're implementing for security purposes?
No, we have the advantage again of the APEC experience and the Pope's visit. if you recall. So I was fortunate enough to have handled both also. So, and many of the officers I'm dealing with now have had that previous experience. So it's really easier now in a way, but it doesn't make the preparations any easier. No, it's only the fact that you have someone who already had gone through that, so more or less ang learning curve niya. Learning curve is less. So, but otherwise, still all have to be on our toes. We have to be on the alert.
The president also is undergoing a learning curve when it comes to these international summits. But
Yes.
are you confident that he is ready to take on the
Oh
role?
yes, very confident, very confident.
Why, sir? What makes you so confident?
Oh, it's just the way that he is. Like I said, he picks up quite fast. And if you brief him, this is what you do, and he follows that, it's okay. He's very good at it. But when he goes off and says, "Okay, I'll do it my own," there he can too. The only thing really is that he probably won't have too much time doing it on his own, because everything is there are time constraints. There's a time limit. So the leaders, when they speak, they can only speak no less than 7 minutes or so. And as chair, sometimes it's your duty to say, and how to say it, that the speaker is going beyond the allotted time. So these are some of the things that he will need to learn to do. But most summits that I've attended, those extend.
Extension of the speaking time.
Yes.
Can we expect the president to read all prepared speeches, or will he also be some?
Here, I think he will see the use and the facility of prepared interventions or speeches, because we'll have to prepare a script for him for the as chair, because I mean, you wouldn't know what to do next, nah? Unless you are following a script. So we will prepare a script for him.
Are you confident that he'll follow?
Oh yes, yeah.
So far he's been okay with the
Oh
protocols?
yes, he has been.
And sir, you mentioned earlier that the president is very quick to pick up on issues.
Yes.
You observe this during the briefings. How do you observe that?
Well,
what do you observe
it's in the way that he asks questions. So from the questions that he asks, you know that this guy is looking at it and knows exactly. He probably wants to be clarified about certain issues, and so he asks. So these are questions that are related to the issue.
You give him reading material as well to bring home, to sort of absorb all the issues.
Yes.
Because he's a very
Yes. Sometimes that's too much. So we try to, of course, condense it into an executive brief of 1 or at most 2 pages. How can you do a 2-page briefer for, let's say, 20, 30 issues in various different stages, really? So that's why. And for the most part, many of these summits are in a way constructed or designed in such a way that everybody gets to know who will speak ahead of time. So we already know the order of the speakers and what they're going to talk about.
But the president didn't request for any time to be able to speak extemporaneously? Like there's no venue for that?
No, there is. In a way, he can summarize the proceedings. Our staff will also help him summarize by bullets, etc. is given to him, then he can summarize. So he can be extemporaneous there. But in the interest of time, it's really best that he reads the interventions, because the interventions are direct to the point and brief.
This will be my last question, sir.
Yes.
As someone who has organized so many big events in the country, what has been the greatest challenge and reward for you?
The greatest challenge is to let it happen. The greatest reward is that it happened.
So will this be your last, you think? Your last
I
summit?
hope so. Yes, I hope so.
So after this, you're done?
After this, I'll let the younger guys take over, and hopefully they learn lessons. I'm not stingy when it comes to sharing my ideas, my views. I tell everyone how to do it, and I sincerely hope that people pick up from my own personal experience. I am very thankful that that I was given the opportunity to handle these summits. And so for me, the only way to give back is to share your knowledge, because otherwise, I mean, what's the use keeping it? You have to share so that everybody gets to improve themselves. And I'm sure they also have a lot of ideas as to how to improve things further. Yes.
Thank you so much for speaking with us. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
So we've been speaking to Chief of Presidential Protocol, Ambassador Marciano Paynor. Thank you so much for watching Rappler Talk.